We've learned that there are certain indicators that can lead to having a successful full arch practice. First of all, that kind of the first question that you want to ask yourself as a clinician is, do I want to go all in, specialized, narrow focus on just surgery, full arch, and delivering that transformational high value care?
So in a perfect world, you separate full arch out and you make your own practice. Is that right?
I know countless people that I've met over the years at Implant Pathway, at different training courses, at different non-clinical practice management courses that have successfully navigated the labyrinth of adding full arch into an existing location.
Welcome back to another episode of the Full Arch Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the owner of SMC National, where we hop offices just like yours, compete against the big guys out there so you can grow the way that you want. And today I have a very special guest. This is honestly one of the favorite podcasts that I've done on this show so far. Dr. Alex Sharp, who's the CEO of Shared Practice Group. And he has scaled his group to over 37 locations doing full arch. And he's going to share the secret sauce with you guys of what he's learned along the way, the runway that you're going to need to be able to get your practice open, as well as the mindset that he looks for in dentists that are going to be successful with full arch. Again, this one was loaded with good stuff. I promise you, if you listen to this, you're going to get a lot from it and you're going to learn a lot from it. And you're probably going to want to reach out to Alex. And at the end, he gives away something that normally guests like him don't give away. Personal information to be able to reach out to him and have a conversation with him. So stay tuned for this one. You're going to enjoy it. All right. We are live and I'm excited today because Dr. Alex Sharp and myself we were just having a conversation before we hit record, and this is going to be a really, really good episode. And it's going to be a little bit different. So normally we approach this from a growth standpoint. What are you seeing that's helping doctors grow? And that is a great conversation to have. But today, we're going to be talking about what do we do in a perfect situation when we're adding full arch? How do we scale that perfect situation? Because Alex has done this multiple times, and he runs a group, and they are constantly opening up de novos across the country in different states. He's probably seen it all. And so Dr. Alex, I'm really, really excited to hear what, like in a perfect world, if I'm thinking about opening up a full arch office, what things need to be there for me to be super duper successful? You've probably noticed this before, but this podcast is unsponsored. What that means is we don't get paid to do it, but we want to bring you the best information possible. So how do we make sure that this content stays on the air? We need you to like and subscribe. Wherever you're at, whatever you're listening on, just give us a thumbs up or subscribe. And that helps us out so much. I know that you probably haven't done it, so I'm just going to sit here and wait until you do. 95% of our listeners have not subscribed to our podcast. So go ahead and do it now. Don't make this awkward. All right, good. Back to the show.
Well, Gary, first of all, if it were a perfect world, neither of us would have premature gray hair. Second of all, no, I think that's a phenomenal question and a great jumping off point, because we have learned the hard way at SPG over the course of working together for the last 4+ years and opening 37 locations across the country. We've learned that there are certain indicators that can lead to having a successful full arch practice. And I do think that it's important to note, first of all, that kind of the first question that you want to ask yourself as a clinician is, do I want to go all in, specialized, narrow focus on just surgery, full arch, and delivering that transformational high value care? Or do I want to do that as an add-on to an already bustling GP office? Because I'll tell you, I've done it both ways. My origin story was I was the aspiring super GP that was able to keep a ton of stuff in-house. I was reticent to refer out endo or thirds or whatever, because I wanted to be able to, number one, serve my patients the right way. And then number two, recoup the fees, obviously, from being able to keep more things in-house. And what I learned was that adding full arch was not the same level of difficulty as taking an endo course or adding sleep apnea therapy or doing aligners. It took a whole different skill set clinically, but it also took a different skill set for your team. There's a different way of talking to patients about full arch treatment. There's just a myriad of different challenges that pop up when you're trying to juggle GP, dentistry, bread and butter, insurance participation relative to these types of high-value transformational procedures that exist largely outside the auspices of dental insurance. So it's almost like two different types of practices in one, which is why, as you alluded to, we decided to start with the de novo method to be able to start locations the right way, with the right marketing, with the right team hiring, with the right level of focus, so that you can be excellent at just your chosen breadth of dentistry.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, you separate full arch out and you make your own practice. Is that right?
That's my experience, and I know countless people that I've met over the years at Implant Pathway, at different training courses, at different non-clinical practice management courses that have successfully navigated the labyrinth of adding full arch into an existing location. It certainly can be done. One way that it's done is you have the owner or one of the owners that carves out a niche within the practice. It's like a practice within a practice, and they focus solely on being the mayor of the practice and being the PR, being the shaking hands, kissing babies type of person, and then sourcing those types of procedures from within. They have multiple doctors that do the bread and butter. They source those opportunities from their team. But what we find too is that when you're only sourcing from your practice, there aren't that many at-bats.
Yeah.
It's hard statistically to source patients that are truly candidates for this type of care from a quote-unquote recall base that, it stands to reason, has been going to the dentist for a long time. So a lot of them are in stable periodontal conditions. Maybe they've had their needs met with other types of care, and they're probably not all that eligible for this type of care. It's usually the type of person that has been putting off dentistry for a long time for whatever reason, be it fear, be it they're unsure what type of care they need, cost. All of those things can cause people to sit on their hands and not go to the dentist for a long time. So what we find is that when you source patients direct to consumer, we're able to really position ourselves as the specialist, the expert, the ones that are able to fulfill that type of care, rather than, hey, we do fillings, crowns, endo, cleanings, and oh, by the way, we also dabble in this.
So have you worked with anybody, because I'm thinking about the doctors that are listening right now, right? That are like, stink, I'm trying to get this off the ground, or I want to add this. And a lot of them are going to be GP offices, right? So have you worked with people who, or doctors specifically, who were like, hey, I really want to add this to my practice, but you know what? I'm going to keep my GP practice the way that it is, and we'll open up a second office for full arch. And because that's the kind of treatment that I want to do. So I'm going to get the GP machine working, so to speak, and then move over there. Have you done that before?
We have. So we started as a company by having a podcast on practice management, and then we additionally layered on dentist coaching starting in 2018, 2019. And so we've definitely helped people to do what you just described, where you have the mothership that can feed the surgical specialist type practice adjacent to it, or one town over, however that shakes out. It's not our preferred way of approaching things, simply because whenever you make that transition, whenever you hit that inflection point where you shift from one practice to two, there are so many different checkpoints that quote unquote should be considered when you're making the decision to carve off your attention from your main cash cow to a second location. And I've made that mistake early in my career, where I had this false sense of accomplishment or ability, however you want to define it. And I went for that second location way too soon. And there has to be a compelling reason. There has to be so much juice that it's worth the squeeze to be able to carve off that second location, or acquire a second location, or outfit a second location for a specific type of procedure. Honestly, the most straightforward thing to do would be to, if you're leasing add on to your space, put up a second storefront, and then you just expand your rent that way. Or knock down a wall if you own the real estate, add a couple of operatories, expand your parking, and then you have quote unquote 2 practices in one is another way to do it. Because a lot of people have been successful doing the multiple location thing in a discrete geographic area. One of my business partners, Matt Ford, he did this up in South Dakota and Minnesota, and he was very successful at it, adding locations to his group over time, over the course of a few years. But so many things have to go well to make that transition from one practice to 2. I think the 1 to 2, it's kind of like having kids, right? You go from 1 to 2, and it's not double the work. It's some multiple beyond double the work, depending on your situation. So.
Yeah, two to 3 is easy, right? I always tell people, like, they're like stressed. This people who have 2 kids and go to 3, they're like stressing out. It's like, that's an easy jump. It's the 1 to 2 that kills you, because you can't divide and conquer anymore. And yeah, I imagine everything's that way. So let me ask you this question then. So I'm just trying to put myself in the audience shoes, and I want to ask you the right questions. So if I'm going to do that strategy, so I'm like, I really want to add full arch. And I'm going to add these extra operatories and maybe just put another, entry into the office or whatever. And so it's more of like an add-on than a true second office, but we're going to treat it like a second office. One of the things that I see dentists get trapped in all the time is that they're like, okay, I'm going to add full arch. So I'm going to do the clinical training. That's going to cost me 10 to 20,000. And then I'm going to add the equipment. That's another, couple racks there. And then and then they're like, and then I should be good to go. And it's like, no, it's going to be a lot more than that. And there's going to be a lot more heartache and money and investment and just like so much more that goes into it. From this point of view, from what you're describing, what is the financial runway that I really should be considering? Let's assume that I already got the equipment. Let's assume that I've already done the clinical training. I'm going to probably need more and need some mentorship, but I'm ready to take it on. Like what kind of cost are we looking at to add on this second location? I put in quotation marks.
That's a really astute question. And as you were talking, I was jotting down the different line items that I can think about as it pertains to the raw cost. And what we're talking about, time away from the office to go train, the actual training, the equipment, the mentorship, the ongoing coaching that you're getting. That's not to mention the fact that you're going to have to hire more people to be able to do this type of procedure. Yep. That's not to mention that you're going to have to completely start from the studs, strip it down to the studs for your marketing to be able to market more effectively and in a more targeted way to be able to source these patients. It's a whole different animal. And I do think that too, another way to compute it is it's going to be a ramp up period. And what I mean by that is it's not as if you're going to say, okay, we're open for business doing full arch. We're going to have 3 cases the first week. It'll be a drip, drip, drip. And then eventually your team will get its act together. You'll be able to have your workflow. You'll know how to talk about the value of the treatment to the patients. But it's kind of like this investment that it's really murky as to how long it'll take to really realize the ROI. I'm looking at an investment right now that I was reading the prospectus yesterday, and this is not related to dental, but there was a clause in the contract that says that the owner that's opening this company does not have to ascribe to any type of schedule to pay back the initial investments. Like there's no impetus, there's no forcing function cause that person to say, well, here's the waterfall, here's where people get paid back. And that made me raise an eyebrow, and that's going to result in a phone call before I commit to anything. So point being that you need to figure out, what do I anticipate my ROI being? And sometimes, this was the other thing I wrote down during your question, Gary, was sometimes growth, as we define it, is not actual measurable size of the pie growing. Sometimes growth means that we're moving along the linear path of our career, and we're realizing that what I was doing is no longer what excites me, what awakens the passion in me. Sometimes growth is simplification. And what I mean by that is, say you go to a course or you do a continuum to learn how to do this type of implant dentistry, And you just have this lightning bolt epiphany awakening moment. And you realize, oh my gosh, this is what I was put on this earth to do. I love this. This is amazing. And when you have that realization, you only have so many of those in your life. And I recommend that people run with it, whether that means, hey, I'm a 20-year veteran in this practice. I built this thing up. It's amazing. It's cool. Well, then sometimes the way to pursue your passion and to get growth is to simplify. And the way you could simplify is to say, all right, I'm drawing this line in the sand. I'm not going to participate with all the PPO plans. I'm dropping Medicaid. I'm going to narrow the aperture through which I view my patient base. And from there, I'm going to only focus on marketing this way, positioning myself this way in the market, asking for 5-star Google reviews from this type of patient so that I can create that momentum to really dial in the type of dentistry that I want to do on the back half of my career. Where it's challenging is that type of dentist that feels like he or she has painted themselves into a corner with their niche and with the type of patients that they see. It's easier with a younger dentist. It's easier with a dentist who has fewer sacred cows that they're clinging on to, which is where, like at SPG, for example, we love the dentist that has been out for like 2 to 3 or 5 years, that has experienced what it's like to do quads of fillings.
They've gone through the ringer.
Because like for me, I didn't really figure out what I wanted to do until I'd had enough experience under someone else's thumb for a long time to make the mistakes, see what bad management gone run amok can look like and feel like. And then that makes you way more secure in saying, all right, I'm going to lay down my gauntlet. I want to do implants. I want to go through the crap factor, because life is nothing but trade-offs. And one of the trade-offs of this type of dentistry is that it is more impactful, yet it's more challenging. It is very, very innervating, and it gets you up in the morning, but you have more sleepless nights when you're concerned about post-op complications. So it's just bigger swings in this type of dentistry. Sorry to be so long-winded.
No. This is really good. And really at the end of the day, it boils down to working smarter, not harder, right? That's what you're really describing, but you're going into the weeds of full arch, and it is complicated. So if you gave me a really easy answer and said, just buy my course, bro, I'd be more concerned. Right. And so as you were speaking, it made me think about something that I've seen, and I might be oversimplifying this, but I would love, as you work with dentists and you have an avatar that you're trying to work with and you're trying to attract and partner with. And I have an avatar that I'm trying to work with and partner with, and I don't want to work with I don't want to ever get on a losing horse, right? You don't want to bet on a losing horse. So I've learned over time of like, this is how we don't work with people who are going to fail in the short term, which is very common in full arch. And I would love how you break this down and how you look at it. But what I've seen is there's dentists out there basically that want to add full arch to increase their top line because general dentistry has begun to be pinched. It got pinched because of lower reimbursements. It's getting pinched because of higher staff costs. The COGS, cost of goods, is going up. So they're getting pinched. So it's like, what does any good business person do when you get pinched? And on your profit, you increase top line. And one of the easiest ways to increase top line is to do one thing one time and grow your office by 10% or 5%. And it makes a lot of sense on paper, right? But so those kind of offices typically, I've noticed, end up in a really bad spot and really hurt. The people that are a little bit harder to work with because they're a little less motivated to do the things that are necessary to be successful, like all the extra stuff, but they seem to do better long term, are the ones that actually love the challenge from a clinical standpoint. And they don't like the idea when I come to them and I'm like, look, marketing is going to be a totally different ballgame than what you're used to. You're going to have to go wade through 100 leads to get one interested patient. Like, no one likes hearing that stuff, right? And operationally, you're going to have to operate in a totally different way, and patient financing is totally different. It's a different ballgame. But I find that those people their motivation is coming from a different place. And so they tend to do better over the long haul. And again, I'm the marketing guy, so I'm the top of the funnel guy. And so I might have a totally wrong point of view of this. What is your thoughts? Like, how do you see it after working with these people? Who is your avatar that you're like, that guy is going to be successful?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great time to ask that question, because I've done a lot of, I don't think soul searching would be the right word, but I have gone through our historic, to use your word, avatars, which is the correct word, we've looked to see what has made people successful on our platform with our model. And our approach, our angle, our credo that we live by is at SPG, we want all of us to be able to maximize our impact. And what we find is that the people that have the biggest impact and that experience the least amount of friction in delivering this type of care are the people that come in with humility, which sometimes runs counter to the types of dentists that are attracted to this type of care. Because I'll make fun of myself again. I went and took all the courses and did all the things and got ready and ordered all the equipment and got ready to do implants. And you almost have to have a gunslinger mentality to be attracted to this. You have to be, because otherwise you'd be content to drill, fill, and bill till kingdom come. And it's weird because you want that gunslinger approach, that fearlessness, that desire to sharpen the saw and succeed, to be tempered by teamwork, humility, being a member of something bigger, and your phrasing around being committed to those outcomes and delivering that level of care is something that is very motivational to a lot of dentists. But just speaking from my experience, the people that do this the best are the ones that are humble enough to put the patient first, to be able to be a member of a team. And in our company, we have this big doctor chat where we share cases, we share frustrations, we share challenges, we share wins. Everything across the board gets shared. And I think having that network, having that safety net, if you're a solo dentist that's adding this to your practice, then find people that you trained with at your continuum, or find people the next town over that are doing the same thing. And I think it's important just to have a lifeline, because this type of dentistry is not for the faint of heart, whether in terms of talking to patients about it and building value for it, or actually executing the surgery, or handling the inevitable post-op complications. Like handling those things in a vacuum, I've done it before I joined and helped to form this group. Before I did that, you're handling all that in isolation. You're frantically texting people. You're looking on message boards to try to find answers, versus you have a network of people that can support you. So if you're not a part of a larger network, I recommend building your own, because that makes this whole dental pursuit of excellence that we're all the same train that we're all riding, it makes it that much more easy.